Nick Loris, Vice President of Policy at C3 Solutions. Welcome to the meeting.
Thanks for having me.
Your organization has authored a report entitled The Climate and Freedom Agenda. Can you briefly explain the relationship between free societies and climate and how expanding freedom can help the economy and the environment?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me and inviting me to this discussion and for all your and Rod's leadership on this issue. Our central tenet is that free economies are clean economies, and the principles that make a country economically free, whether that's a strong rule of law, private property rights that are protected, low tax rates, modernized regulations and efficient regulations, as well as open markets, are not only critical to human prosperity, to increasing energy abundance and energy affordability, but also to protecting our environment and making strides on reducing the risks of climate change. And we think this is important both from a decarbonization strategy, but also an adaptation strategy. And if you look at a lot of the policies that are pro-growth economic policies, they can also really help capture those two fundamental challenges that I think we have in this space, which is increasing access to energy while also making sure that we are reducing the risks of climate change. And there's plenty of opportunity to drive down the cost of clean energy technologies, of technologies in the agriculture sector, in the industrial sectors, all that continue to elevate prosperity and human flourishing while also minimizing those climate risks. And so we look at those principles from indices of economic freedom, whether that's from the Fraser Institute or the Heritage Foundation. And we just did a basic correlation with the Yale University here in the United States Environmental Performance Index, and show that the freest economies are nearly twice as clean as the unfree economies. And it's for a number of different reasons that we can get into, but I'm happy to either talk about that in more detail or really explore some of the policy prescriptions that can help countries increase their levels of economic freedom, but also move towards more cleaner environments.
Well, how about this? How do lower taxes or tax cuts act as an incentive for innovation, competitive markets, and trade?
Yeah, I mean, tax rates are a big one, and I think it kind of shoots across the board. You could look at corporate tax rates, you could look at expensing policies, but really when developed countries and developing countries are more competitive through open markets and lower tax rates, that's going to spur more innovation. And I think that's the driving force behind why free economies are clean economies, is because like many things, when you have freer economies, you have higher levels of wealth and prosperity. And so that allows for more resources to be invested in cleaner technologies, in pollution abatement, in stronger and more resilient buildings and infrastructure. And so, we know that, there's the wealth equals health argument. And that's the same for environmental protection, is that when we have free competitive economies, we also see more clean energy innovation. We see more investments in natural gas, in nuclear, in renewables, really across the board. And I think, one of the things that, we appreciate, and I know you guys appreciate, is the technology neutrality approach to it. Because, too often, I think climate change policies are synonymous with big government intervention or using the government to pick winners and losers with different tax preferences. And we've seen a lot of that in the United States, and the unintended economic consequences that come with those policies. So our focus is really technology neutral, and policies like immediate expensing, which I can get into a little bit more, take a technology neutral approach that incentivizes investment in innovation.
That's a perfect segue. A proposed adjustment to the tax structure would be to allow immediate expensing or deductibility for capital expenses and research and development. This would be instead of amortizing those deductions over time. What is the impact of an adjustment like this?
Yeah, it's huge. And again, I think it's something that has bipartisan support in the United States for its impact on innovation, on research and development, and more efficiency and economic growth and boosting productivity, all of which are important. And so with immediate expensing, as you just mentioned, it allows companies to deduct their costs in the year that they're incurred rather than deducting them and amortizing them over time. And so to give a quick example, if a company has an opportunity to fully deduct research and development expenses, let's say this company has $2 million in income and spends $1 million on R&D expenses, that would make their taxable income only $1 million after deducting the $1 million they spent on research and development. Whereas if you could only deduct 100,000 of that in the first year, your taxable income is $1.9 million. So it really increases your taxable income when you amortize these investments over time. And the beauty of this is, again, is one, that it's tax neutral and technology neutral. It really incentivizes a lot of investment in people, whether that's, lab researchers, scientists, tech developers, but also in new equipment and machinery that's more energy efficient. And so if you have companies investing in newer vehicles that are more efficient, or a new piece of equipment, or, a new HVAC for its building, all of that can be deducted in the year that they are incurred. And so it really boosts productivity by investing in innovative new pieces of machinery and equipment, but it also helps reduce emissions. And so, again, this is something that is technology neutral. It's something that spans really across the economy. It's not just for the energy sector, but it's for, software engineers, for the tech sector, for industrial sectors. And it's something that, again, is a win for the economy, and it's a win for the environment.
Thanks so much. That's a powerful tool. Another potential financial instrument is private tax-exempt debt, like a municipal bond in the United States, but for corporations. How could tax-exempt debt for these capital expenses accelerate decarbonizing innovation without picking winners, like you just said?
Yeah, I think it's using a similar tool in which, if interest rates are lower, and if taxable income is lower, it provides another technology neutral incentive for companies to invest in cleaner technologies. And I think that there's a lot of innovation in the financing space, which is good, but regrettably, a lot of our financing in the United States has gone to subsidizing mature technologies, particularly wind and solar. And one of the concerns of the Inflation Reduction Act, the big climate bill that was passed in the United States, is that it's going to be this large wealth transfer from taxpayers to banks and to these industries. Whereas if you use these alternative financing tools, you allow the market to determine what they think is the most economically efficient path forward. And that could be wind and solar, but it could be hydrogen or advanced nuclear or geothermal. And it allows private corporations to put their money where their mouth is and reach potentially their own decarbonization targets. But it also helps lower the cost of these energy sources and technologies. And I think that's the most critical part in all of this, is that if we're to really reduce global emissions, that we need to make it in the economic interest of developing countries to pursue cleaner alternatives. And again, that could be natural gas, it could be nuclear. The market could ultimately determine and should determine what that is. But countries aren't going to pursue those technologies if it's not in their economic interest to do so. And so when we think about future emissions, and lowering green premiums, these financing tools can be good free market mechanisms to reduce the cost and make it in the economic interest of other countries to pursue clean technologies.
Well, let's move into that. How can elements contained within the Climate and Freedom Accord be used as a strategy to expand freedom and address climate change?
Yeah, well, I think the threats from I should say the threats to freedom are kind of under attack, from the left and the right in support of either big government interventions or industrial policy, where some people on the right are using government to pick out the winners that they think is best for the government to intervene in. And one thing I appreciate, one thing out of many I appreciate out of the Climate and Freedom Accord is, one, it understands the importance of trade-offs, is that, we do need to tackle energy affordability, energy reliability, and energy access across the world. And we can't have climate policies that are rooted in degrowthism or rooted in restricting access to energy. With almost 1 billion people without access to energy, and hundreds of millions of more who are living in energy poverty, we need policies that tackle both. And so, my appreciation for the Climate and Freedom Agenda and my appreciation for the Climate and Freedom Accord is that it's good economic policies, like lowering barriers to trade, like modernizing permitting processes to allow for new investments to come online faster, and fixing outdated regulations, and making sure open markets are important for private financing and private development in developing countries. It's all of these tools that we know historically that have been really good for human flourishing and prosperity, are also going to help developing countries develop and address their environmental challenges, whether they're climate related or whether they're related to clean air and clean water. And so we have all of the policy prescriptions necessary to help boost productivity and human flourishing. And we also know these tools can be real critical to helping countries reduce their emissions and ultimately become cleaner.
That's terrific, Nick. We'll try to come back to you whenever possible and hope to see you in person. We'll share your contact information with the group.
Yeah,
Thanks so
please
much
do.
for being with us.
Thank you so much.